The galaxy was old. Stars had been born, burned, and died long before humanity ever learned how to make fire. For thousands of years, alien civilizations had risen to power, fought wars across the stars, and formed the Galactic Council, a great alliance that claimed to represent peace, order, and wisdom. The Council's members were strong, ancient, and proud, and among them, humans were new. Earth had joined the Council less than 20 years ago. To the older species, humans were like children who had just learned to walk. They were small, fragile, and came from a single planet with no colonies outside their star system. Most humans still lived in cities by rivers and oceans, not in floating megacities or moons carved into palaces. They were a curiosity, something to laugh about, but never to take seriously. In the shining heart of the galaxy, on the station world of Auraxis Prime, the council chambers were alive with noise. 1,000 voices, 1,000 languages, all blending into a deep roar. The great hall was a circle of silver walls that stretched high into the clouds, the floor in the middle glowing with a hollow map of the galaxy. Here, leaders of the known universe met to speak, trade, and sometimes to threaten each other. And today, they were laughing. At the very center of the hall stood the human delegation, 3 men and 2 women from Earth. They wore dark blue diplomatic uniforms with the silver crest of the United Earth Fleet on their shoulders. They stood tall, but it was easy to see the difference between them and the others. They had no armored scales like the reptilian Rhinar. They had no wings like the shining Thalesians. They had no telepathic crests like the wise Yikari. They were soft-skinned, light-boned, and fragile-looking. Around them, alien representatives exchanged amused glances. A giant, crab-like Gorthon tapped its claw against the floor and said in a deep, clicking voice, "Tell me, humans, do you still need to wear suits to breathe on other planets?" The crowd laughed. A Thalesian with silver feathers tilted her head and smiled sharply. "Do you still fight with chemical bullets? How quaint!" The humans kept their faces calm. They had heard it all before. For years, humans had been treated as a joke, a backward race from the edge of the galaxy. The Council allowed them to join mostly because humans could be useful as traders and miners. No one thought of them as warriors. High above, on the Council's speaker platform, Chancellor Vorkron, a tall Rhinar with dark green scales, banged his staff for silence. "Representatives," he said in a deep, rolling voice, "let us return. To order. We are here today to discuss the recent aggression by the Threx Dominion." The room's laughter faded. The name Threx Dominion had a weight to it, a name that made even the oldest species shift uncomfortably. The Threx were not members of the Council. They were conquerors, an empire that expanded by burning worlds and enslaving survivors. Their fleets were vast, their weapons brutal, and they had just sent a declaration of war to Earth. The Chancellor turned his gaze to the human delegation. "Ambassador Ryland," he said, his voice echoing, "your people are under attack. We have received reports that the Threx fleet is already moving toward your home system." Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber. Some were genuine. Many were mocking. A Gorthon delegate muttered, "It will be over quickly. Ambassador Ryland," a man in his 40s with short black hair and a scar on his cheek, stepped forward. His voice was calm, but there was steel in it. "We are aware of the threat. The United Earth Fleet is mobilizing." The laughter began again. A Yikari elder spoke from his high seat, his telepathic voice echoing in everyone's minds. "Mobilizing? With what? You have, what, 20 warships?" Ryland did not answer. He simply said, "We will defend our home." Chancellor Vorkron gave a slow nod. "The Council will not intervene. We cannot risk open war with the Threx Dominion. You understand this." "We understand," Ryland said. "This was the way of the galaxy. The Council did not fight for newcomers. They did not risk their fleets for species they barely knew. In the crowd, a young alien journalist whispered into her recorder, "Earth will fall within the week." But standing at the edge of the human delegation was a woman who was not laughing, not afraid, and not recording defeat. She was silent, her eyes scanning the council chamber like a predator watching prey. Her name was Captain Zara Kane. Zara was not a diplomat. She wore no ceremonial uniform, only the black and gray field suit of a United Earth Fleet officer. Her short brown hair was tied back, her eyes a sharp shade of steel gray. She had seen war before, not the grand space battles of history, but the kind of war that leaves scars inside the soul. Her father had died on Mars 12 years ago when alien raiders attacked the first human colony there. She had been 20 at the time, a junior officer, helpless to stop it. That day, she promised herself she would never be helpless again. And now, the Threx Dominion had made the same mistake those raiders made. They underestimated humans, while the council discussed. Zara's wrist console buzzed. A secure message flashed on the small hollow screen. Erebus ready, awaiting orders. Her lips curled into the smallest of smiles. Erebus, Earth's first experimental warship, a project so secret that even the Council did not know of its existence. It was faster, stronger, and deadlier than anything humans had ever built before. The aliens thought humanity was weak. Zara was going to show them how wrong they were. Far away, in the cold darkness between the stars, the Threx fleet moved like a swarm of steel locusts. 200 warships, each bristling with weapons, shields glowing like angry suns. Their commander, High Warlord Dravik, watched the stars slide past from his throne on the flagship. "Only one human world of value," Dravik muttered. "Destroy it, and the rest will surrender." A sensor officer turned, claws clicking nervously. "My lord, the humans are sending a single warship to face us." Dravik stared at him. Then he laughed. "One ship? Against my armada!" His voice was like metal grinding. "Then this will not be a war. It will be an execution." The crew joined his laughter. They had fought many battles, but this one would be the easiest. A single human ship was no threat. No threat at all. Back in the council chambers, alien leaders signed trade agreements and shared gossip, while humans quietly prepared for something far more serious. Ambassador Ryland excused himself from the meeting, followed by Zara. They stepped into the long glass corridors of Auraxis Prime, the star-filled void stretching out beyond the walls. "You're sure about this?" Ryland asked her. "Yes," Zara said simply. "They expect us to fight with the ships they know about. They expect us to beg for help. They expect us to lose. And instead," Zara's gaze turned hard. "Instead, we end this before the galaxy even believes it's begun." The Council had laughed at humanity that day. They laughed at their size, their technology, their courage. They laughed. Until a single warship would make them remember that even the smallest predator has teeth. Far above the spinning worlds, in the black silence of space, the Erebus waited, a blade in the dark, ready to strike. And soon, the galaxy would learn, a truth they had forgotten. Humans were dangerous when they were underestimated. The docking bay of Outpost Helios was quiet, too quiet for a station preparing for war. Deep in the far reaches of the Sol system, the station floated near Neptune's orbit, hidden from most scanners. It was cold, silent, and remote. The perfect place to keep a secret. And hidden in the largest hangar was Erebus. From the outside, she didn't look like a normal Earth warship. Her hull was matte black, shaped like an arrowhead, built to swallow light instead of reflecting it. No running lights, no bright paint, no visible gun turrets. To an untrained eye, she might have seemed harmless. But her shape hid things the galaxy had never seen, weapons that did not exist in any alien database, and a power core that made her move like a shadow across space. Captain Zara Kane walked along the docking platform, her boots echoing on the metal floor. She paused for a moment, looking at the ship. This was not just steel and circuits to her. This was a promise to never let humanity be laughed at again. Her second-in-command, Commander Elias Rourke, stood waiting near the entry ramp. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark skin and eyes that never seemed to stop moving. He had served with Zara for 8 years, through patrols, border skirmishes, and the long, quiet waits between missions. "Everything's ready, Captain," Rourke said. "Crews aboard, systems are green, weapons primed." "Any word from the Threx fleet?" Zara asked. "Last intel says they'll be in Sol space within 48 hours. They're coming straight for Earth." Zara nodded, her expression unreadable. "Then we meet them before they get close." Inside the Erebus, the crew was a mix of the best Earth had to offer. Pilots from Luna, engineers from Titan, gunners from the old Earth fleet. Only 50 souls in total, each hand-picked for their skill and ability to keep secrets. The corridors were narrow, lined with black panels that hummed softly from the ship's living power core. In the command center, the main holotable displayed the enemy's projected path. The Threx armada moved like a swarm, straight and unbroken, as if confident nothing could stop them. Zara studied the display. Her crew waited for orders. "They think we're weak," she said quietly, almost to herself. "They think one ship is no threat. That's their mistake." Lieutenant Mara Vance, the tactical officer, looked up from her console. "Ma'am, if I may, we are just one ship, against 200. Zara's lips twitched into the faintest hint of a smile. "Mara, do you know the difference between a knife and a scalpel?" The lieutenant blinked. "One's for fighting. One's for precision." "Exactly," Zara said. "Most ships are knives. We're a scalpel. And we're about to perform surgery on the Threx fleet." The Erebus lifted from the docking bay in silence. Her engines left no bright trail. Instead, the space behind her seemed to shimmer and fold, like light was bending away. As she slipped into the blackness beyond Neptune, the stars swallowed her completely. For hours they traveled unseen, following a route that no enemy could track. The crew moved like a machine, their voices low, their hands sure. They all knew the plan: strike fast, strike hard, and leave nothing behind. In her private cabin, Zara sat at a small desk, looking at an old photograph. It showed a man in an Earth Fleet uniform, her father. His smile was proud, his arm around a younger Zara. She remembered the last words he had said to her before shipping out to Mars. "Out there, you can't wait for someone else to protect you. You have to be the one holding the line." She put the photo away. Now it was her turn to hold the line. Back on the enemy flagship, High Warlord Dravik was receiving reports. "The human ship has left dock," an officer said. "It is moving, at high velocity, alone." Dravik leaned back in his throne. "Alone? They insult us by sending a single vessel. Good. We will destroy it in front of the galaxy." A communications officer grinned, rows of sharp teeth glinting. "We've arranged for the Council to receive the live feed of the battle. Let them watch Earth's fall." Dravik laughed, a deep, cruel sound that echoed through the bridge. He did not know it yet, but his laughter would not last long. Hours later, the Erebus reached the edge of the battlefield. The Threx fleet was still far away, but their energy signatures burned bright on the scanners. Hundreds of them. Bigger, heavier, and in far greater numbers. Zara stood at the command table, eyes locked on the display. Her voice was calm, but every word carried. "Wait. We're going to close in slowly. They'll think we're nervous, maybe even trying to talk. Let them get comfortable. Let them think this is going to be easy." Commander Rourke nodded. And then, Zara's gaze hardened. And then we erase them. The crew glanced at each other. The words were simple, but they carried something heavier than orders, a promise. The Erebus slipped forward, a black arrow cutting through the dark. In the distance, the Threx armada began to shift formation, ready to meet their single, fragile enemy. Somewhere, far away in the council chambers, alien leaders gathered again, this time to watch the battle. They expected a short show, a quick end. None of them knew they were about to witness the beginning of something the galaxy would never forget. The Threx Dominion's warships filled the darkness like a wall of steel. Hundreds of them, their hulls jagged and bristling with weapons, moved in perfect formation. They looked like predators that had hunted the stars for centuries, because they had. Each ship was built for one purpose: destruction. In the center of the formation was the flagship Bloodfang, a massive fortress of black armor and glowing crimson vents. From its bridge, High Warlord Dravik watched the tactical display. His yellow eyes narrowed as the human vessel appeared on his scanners, a single black shape, moving slowly toward the swarm. Dravik rose from his throne. So this is the defender. Of Earth, he growled. A single ship against my armada. They truly believe they can fight us? His officers laughed, claws tapping against their control panels. The sound was cruel, echoing through the vast bridge. Open a channel, Dravik ordered. Let me speak to this human captain before we crush her. On the bridge of the Erebus, the enemy signal came through. The hollow projector flickered, revealing Dravik's massive form, armored scales, jagged teeth, and a grin filled with contempt. Human, he said, his voice deep and mocking. I will give you one chance. Surrender your ship, tell your people to submit, and I may spare some of your kind for labor. Refuse, and I will burn your homeworld to ash. Captain Zara Kane stood in the center of the bridge, hands behind her back. Her face was calm, almost expressionless. You seem very confident, Warlord. Dravik's grin widened. Confidence comes from power. I have 200 warships. You have one. This is not a battle. It is a feast. Zara tilted her head, slightly. Then I hope you brought enough for everyone. Before Dravik could reply, she cut the channel. The Erebus kept moving forward, unhurried, like a lone predator walking into a pack of wolves. The Threx ships began to spread out, surrounding her on all sides. Their scanners swept over the human vessel, feeding data back to the flagship. Analysis, one of Dravik's officers said. No heavy plasma cannons, no shield arrays matching, known military standards. Energy readings minimal. Dravik smiled. Pathetic. Begin recording for the Council. Let them see the moment Earth dies. Far away, on the shining station of Oraxis Prime, the Galactic Council's great chamber was full once more. Alien leaders crowded around the massive central holo display. The image of the battlefield floated above the floor, the tiny black dot of the Erebus surrounded by the massive red signatures of the Threx fleet. They'll be destroyed in minutes, said a Thalesian delegate, her silver feathers shimmering in amusement. Less than that, muttered a Gorthan, clicking his claws together. Some, however, watched with quiet interest. Among them was Admiral Salari of the Yakari, an old telepath who had fought in many wars. His voice touched the minds of those near him. The human captain does not stand like prey. She stands like a hunter. Back in the void, the Threx ships locked weapons. Dozens of missile bays opened, plasma cannons powered up, and the darkness lit with the glow of charging weapons. The Erebus drifted to a stop in the center of the formation. Inside her bridge, the crew waited. The silence was heavy, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's systems. Commander Rourke leaned closer to Zara. They're ready to fire, Captain. Orders? Zara's eyes stayed on the tactical display. The Threx fleet was tightening the circle, confident their prey could not escape. Not yet, she said quietly. The enemy flagship sent another message, this time not words but a threat. A countdown appeared on every screen in the Erebus bridge. 10, 9, 8. "They're toying with us," Mara Vance said at Tactical. "Trying to scare us before they kill us." Zara didn't answer. She watched the numbers fall. 4, 3, her. Hand moved to the armrest of her chair. 1. The countdown ended. The Threx weapons charged to full. In the council chambers, alien leaders leaned forward, ready to watch the destruction of the human ship. And then, Zara spoke. Her voice was calm, almost soft. "Lock all targets," she said. The crew's hands flew across their controls. The Erebus's targeting system came alive, painting every enemy ship in the circle with invisible marks. "Load graviton lances," she continued. A deep hum began in the belly of the ship, a sound no one in the galaxy had heard before. The Erebus's hull seemed to darken further, the very space around her warping slightly. "On my mark," Zara said, her eyes cold. Commander Rourke swallowed. "Captain, what's the mark?" Zara smiled faintly. When they fire first, the Threx fleet's weapons blazed, and hundreds of plasma bolts and missiles streaked toward the Erebus. Zara's hand dropped. "Mark!" That was the moment the galaxy stopped laughing. The blackness of space exploded with light. Hundreds of plasma bolts blazed toward the Erebus, glowing blue and orange against the void. Dozens of missiles streaked forward, leaving burning trails. The Threx fleet had unleashed everything in one overwhelming wave, a storm meant to erase the human ship in a single breath. But the Erebus didn't move. In the command chair, Captain Zara Kane sat as if she were carved from stone. Her eyes were locked on the tactical display, where enemy fire screamed toward her ship. The crew held their breath. Then, at the very last moment, the Erebus moved. It wasn't like any maneuver the galaxy had seen before. There was no slow turn, no heavy burn from engines. Instead, space itself seemed to fold around the ship. The enemy weapons streaked through where the Erebus had been, but now there was only empty blackness. And in that same instant, the Erebus reappeared less than 2,000 kilometers from the nearest Threx battleships. "Fire," Zara said. The graviton lances fired first. Invisible to the eye, they struck like the hand of an angry god. Space around the targeted ships twisted violently, crushing armor and breaking hulls without a single explosion. In seconds, 12 Threx warships imploded, collapsing in on themselves, like paper under a giant's fist. Before the rest of the fleet could react, the Erebus's second wave of weapons roared to life. Superheated plasma projectors, far more powerful than any alien design. Blue-white beams slashed across the void, cutting through enemy shields as if they were mist. 3 more ships were torn apart, their cores igniting in silent fire. On the flagship Bloodfang, alarms screamed. Officers shouted over each other. Their voices panicked. "What weapon was that? Shields failed instantly. Multiple ships destroyed. No debris, no escape pods." High Warlord Dravik's claws dug into the arms of his throne. "It's just one ship. Kill it!" The Threx fleet scrambled to close the gap, firing everything they had, but the Erebus danced between them, vanishing and reappearing in flashes of distorted space. Every time she appeared, another enemy ship died. Far away in the council chamber, the alien delegates had gone silent. The mocking smiles were gone. The great holo display showed the impossible. One human ship tearing through a fleet that should have crushed it instantly. The Thalesian ambassador leaned forward, feathers trembling. What are they using?" Admiral Solari of the Yakari narrowed his eyes. "That is not alien technology," his voice whispered into the minds of those around him. "That is human." On the Erebus, the battle was moving faster. 27. Targets destroyed, Mara Vance reported, her voice almost breathless. Keep firing, Zara said. Don't give them time to think. The ship's rail cannons opened up, not the chemical slug throwers aliens mocked, but magnetically accelerated projectiles moving at a fraction of light speed. They punched through enemy armor so fast, the Threx didn't even have time to raise secondary shields. Each hit was a kill. The battlefield was chaos now. Threx formations shattered, their comm channels filled with fear. On the Blood Fang, Dravik's rage boiled over. Signal every ship, all weapons on the human vessel, now! Hundreds of plasma bolts lit the void again, converging on the Erebus. But Zara was ready. Helm, slip 3 jump, she ordered. The Erebus vanished in a ripple of warped light. The enemy fire smashed into empty space once again. And when the Erebus reappeared, she was behind the Blood Fang. Zara's eyes locked on the flagship's glowing engines. Target their core. The Erebus fired, a beam of pure compressed energy, lanced forward, drilling into the Blood Fang's armored spine. In less than a second, the flagship's shields collapsed, its core cracked, and the massive warship erupted in a silent, brilliant explosion. On the Erebus's bridge, the crew stared at the display. The enemy command ship, gone. Back in the council chambers, the silence was absolute. Every alien in the room was staring at the image of the destroyed flagship. The Gorthan delegate's claw twitched nervously. 4 minutes. It has been only 4 minutes since the first shot. Admiral Solari's voice was calm but heavy, and half the Threx fleet is already gone. In the void, Captain Zara's voice was steady as she gave the next order. Locke knew. Targets! No survivors! The Erebus turned toward the remaining Threx ships. The 4-minute war was far from over, but for the first time in centuries, the predators of the galaxy were starting to feel like prey. The Erebus surged forward like a shadow on fire. The wreckage of the Threx flagship still glowed behind her, its molten fragments spinning into the void. But Zara didn't slow down. She knew what every second meant. The longer the enemy lived, the greater the chance they might regroup. Targets locked, Mara Vance reported, her fingers flying over the tactical console. 67 ships still active. Zara's eyes stayed fixed on the holo display. Not for long. The ship's graviton lances roared again, silent to the human ear but deadly in their effect. Space bent, crushed, and tore. Enemy destroyers crumpled like toys, their hulls twisting until they split apart. Plasma beams followed, sweeping across the battlefield, slicing through whatever the lances hadn't already destroyed. Inside the remaining Threx ships, panic spread like fire. Officers shouted conflicting orders, crews scrambled to reroute power, but nothing stopped the human attacks. They're everywhere, one shouted. They vanish, then reappear. I can't get a lock, another cried. The Erebus was moving, in ways no alien ship could match. Every jump brought her behind, above, or inside the gaps in the Threx formation. Each reappearance was followed by destruction. From the safety of Araxis Prime, the Galactic Council watched the impossible unfold. The massive holo display lit their faces with every flash of battle. They're hunting them, murmured the Thalesian delegate, her silver feathers trembling. This is no battle, Admiral Solari's calm, telepathic voice echoed. This is an execution. The Gorthan delegate, who had laughed the loudest earlier, now clicked his claws nervously. If humans can do this, what else can they do? On the bridge of the Erebus, the crew was focused, but their voices carried the edge of disbelief. 34 ships left, Rourke said, his deep voice tight. We're clearing them too fast for them to regroup. That's the point, Zara replied. Keep pressure on them. I don't want a single one of them leaving this system alive. The rail cannons opened up again. Hypervelocity rounds tore through 2 Threx cruisers before they could even angle their shields. One round hit an enemy missile bay, detonating it in a chain of explosions that consumed 3 ships in a single flash. The Threx commander, now in charge after Dravik's death, tried to rally his fleet. "All ships, retreat, scatter to hyperspace," Zara heard the intercepted transmission. Her voice was cold. "Not happening." She ordered the hyperspace interdiction field activated, a weapon that wrapped the battlefield in a net of gravity so thick that no ship could jump away. The Threx were trapped. The Erebus closed in on the largest remaining cluster of ships. She fired her EMP shockwave, a sphere of invisible energy that burst outward, frying systems on anything within range. Enemy engines went dark, shields collapsed, ships drifted helplessly, waiting for the killing blow. Zara didn't make them. "Wait long, fire all batteries," she said. The storm hit. Plasma beams, rail slugs, and graviton lances struck together, tearing the crippled ships apart. Fire and debris spread across the void like glowing embers in a black ocean. Minutes passed. The once proud Threx armada was now little more than scattered wreckage drifting silently in space. The count on Mara's tactical screen dropped lower and lower until it reached single digits. Zara's voice never changed, steady, focused, without a hint of triumph. "Last targets. Finish it." One by one, the remaining ships died. No survivors. No mercy. In the council chamber, silence ruled. The delegates stared at the display as the final Threx ship vanished in an expanding cloud of molten debris. The Gorthon delegate's voice was a whisper now. All gone. In less than 4 minutes. Admiral Solari's gaze stayed on the fading battle map. "The galaxy will remember this day," he said into the minds of all present. "And they will remember the humans." On the Erebus's bridge, the tactical display cleared, leaving only drifting wreckage and the glow of dying ships. "The battle was over. Report," Zara said. "No enemy contacts," Mara replied. "All ships destroyed." The crew exchanged silent glances, the weight of what they'd done settling in. They had faced 200 warships, and none had escaped. Zara leaned back in her chair, her voice calm. "Good. Prepare to return home." But deep in her mind, she knew this was only the beginning. Because if the Threx had underestimated humanity, others in the galaxy might make the same mistake. The battlefield was silent now, but silence in war never lasted long. As the Erebus swept through the wreckage of the destroyed Threx fleet, faint signals began to flicker on Mara Vance's console. "Captain, I'm picking up a single energy spike," she said. "It's coming from one of the debris fields. Big, too big for a normal reactor." Zara's eyes narrowed. "Show me." The hollow display zoomed in on a shattered Threx dreadnought drifting among the ruins. Most of it was gone, torn apart by the Erebus's attack, but deep inside its core, something glowed with an intense pulsing light. Rourke frowned. "That's not a reactor. That's a warhead." The realization hit the bridge like a cold wind. It wasn't just a missile. It was a planet killer, a weapon designed to destroy an entire world in a single strike. Even in its damaged state, its payload was enough to turn Earth into a burning wasteland. "They must have armed it before the ship went down," Mara said. "It's locked on a target." Zara didn't need to ask what the target was. "Earth," she said quietly. Before the crew could react, the warhead's engines flared to life. It tore free from the wreckage and accelerated at a terrifying speed, vanishing into the black toward Sol. "Captain, it's moving too fast for standard pursuit," Rourke warned. "Even if we match speed, we'll never intercept in time." Zara didn't blink. "We're not going to match speed." The Erebus's engines roared, the black hull shimmering as the ship prepared for one of its most dangerous maneuvers, a slip-jump chase inside normal space. Normally, slip jumps were used for long-distance travel, entering a folded dimension of distorted time and distance. But Zara had another use for it, to cut across the warhead's path like a knife. "Plot and intercept," she ordered. "We're going to appear right in front of it." The crew worked fast, entering coordinates so precise that the smallest error would place them hundreds of kilometers off, or worse, inside the warhead's blast radius. "Jump ready," Mara said. "Do it," Zara commanded. Space twisted, violently. The Erebus vanished in a shimmer, the bridge lights flickering as reality folded around the ship. The transition lasted less than a heartbeat before they slammed back into normal space. There it was, the warhead, glowing like a miniature star, rushing straight toward them. "Fire," Zara said. The Erebus's forward cannons blazed, rail, slugs tearing into the weapon's armored casing. But even as pieces broke away, the warhead's core kept burning. Its fail-safes were designed for exactly this, to keep it alive until detonation. "It's not stopping," Rourke shouted. "Then we go inside," Zara replied. The Erebus surged forward, slipping through the clouds of debris until the warhead's massive shape filled the viewport. At this range, the glow was blinding. The ship's graviton clamps locked onto the weapon, holding it in place for a fraction of a second, just enough for the plasma lances to pierce deep into its heart. The core went critical. "Jump," Zara ordered. The Erebus vanished into slipspace an instant before the warhead detonated. The explosion ripped through the void, a sphere of fire and radiation expanding in all directions. Where the Erebus had been, there was only destruction. When the ship reappeared a few million kilometers away, the bridge was silent. The crew stared at the aftermath on the display, a glowing wound in space where the planet killer had been. Rourke exhaled slowly. That was close. Zara nodded. Too close. They wanted to take Earth with them. Now they never will. But deep inside, she knew the attempt meant something more. The Threx had been willing to sacrifice everything just to ensure humanity didn't survive, which meant the war wasn't over. Not yet. The planet killer was gone, destroyed before it could even breach the Sol system. But there was no time to celebrate. On Mara's console, new blips appeared, dozens of them. The survivors of the Threx fleet had regrouped, reinforced by fresh ships from a nearby sector. They were moving fast, forming a wall of firepower between Erebus and the edge of the system. Rourke scanned the readings. "That's at least 150 ships, Captain. Heavy cruisers, destroyers, carriers, all armed and ready." Mara glanced up. "They must think numbers will save them." Zara's voice was calm, almost cold. "Then we'll show—" "Them numbers don't matter." The council chamber on Araxis Prime lit up with the sight of the new battle forming. The alien delegates leaned forward, their expressions tense. Some still believed the humans had been lucky in the first fight. Others were about to learn the truth. "Helm, bring us in," Zara ordered. "Weapons, full burn." The Erebus shot forward, vanishing into slipspace before the Threx could adjust formation. She reappeared inside their defensive ring, her black hull glinting in the light of enemy plasma fire. The first minute was chaos. Graviton lances ripped apart the nearest carriers, tearing their hangars open and sending fighters spinning into the void. Plasma beams cut through destroyers like blades through paper. The Erebus fired in every direction at once, her targeting system so fast the Threx couldn't predict where she'd strike next. The second minute was slaughter. The ship darted in and out of slipspace, appearing behind one enemy group just long, enough to cripple them before vanishing again. A Threx cruiser tried to ram, but the Erebus spun, its rail cannons punching straight through the enemy's bridge before it could even close the gap. Every jump left another ship in ruins. Every reappearance was followed by an explosion. By the third minute, the Threx fleet was in complete disarray. Their formation broke apart. Ships fled in random directions, their captains desperate to escape. But the hyperspace interdiction field locked them inside the kill zone. One by one, their ships vanished from the tactical display, erased in bright flashes of destruction. The fourth minute was the end. Only a handful of ships remained, all heavily damaged. Zara gave the final order without emotion. All batteries, finish it. The Erebus unleashed her full firepower in a single coordinated strike. The last Threx ships disappeared into clouds of molten debris, their remains drifting silently in the void. On Auraxis Prime, the Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. The holo display timer marked the moment, 4 minutes from the first shot to the last explosion. No alien fleet in recorded history had ever been wiped out so quickly. The Gorthan delegate, who had mocked humanity before the war, finally spoke, his voice low and unsteady. They destroyed them all in 4 minutes. Admiral Solari, still calm, replied, Now you understand. On the bridge of the Erebus, Mara broke the silence. All contacts neutralized, no survivors. Zara stood, her gaze locked on the empty stars ahead. Good. But they won't be the last to test us. The galaxy needs to know. Humanity doesn't lose. The wreckage of the Threx fleet drifted, silently in the void, glowing faintly from the heat of their destruction. The Erebus floated among the ruins like a predator that had just finished its hunt. Inside the bridge, the crew sat in silence. They had won, but the fight had left a shadow over them. This wasn't just a battle. It was a message to every species watching, and Captain Zara intended to make that message loud and clear. Mara, she said, her voice firm, open a broad spectrum channel. I want every listening post, every relay station, every spy satellite to hear this. No encryption, no code, plain language. Mara's fingers flew across the console. Channel open, you're live. To the entire galaxy. Zara stepped forward, her eyes cold and unyielding. This is Captain Zara of the human warship Erebus, she began, her voice carrying the weight of steel. 4 minutes ago, the Threx fleet challenged humanity. 4 minutes later, they ceased to exist. We do not seek war, but if war comes to us, we will end it, quickly, permanently. Her gaze swept across the bridge as if looking straight into the eyes of every alien leader who might be watching. You will hear many things about humans, that we are young, untested, fragile. Believe them if you wish. But remember this, every world that has underestimated us no longer exists. She paused, letting the silence stretch. Somewhere across the galaxy, thousands of translators whispered her words into dozens of alien tongues. Stand against us, and you will meet the same fate as the Threx. Stand with us, and you will know a friend who will fight for you until the stars burn out. Her expression didn't change, but her tone softened slightly, not in kindness, but in certainty. The choice is yours. Choose wisely. Mara cut the transmission. Across the galaxy, leaders, warlords, and common citizens replayed the message over and over. Some felt fear, others felt respect. On Auraxis Prime, the Galactic Council chamber remained quiet for a long moment. The Gorthan delegate finally leaned toward Admiral Solari and whispered, We must reconsider our policies toward humanity. Solari allowed herself the smallest of smiles. Yes, we must. On the Erebus, Zara returned to her command chair. Plot a course back to Sol, she ordered. We've made our point. Now let's go home. The black warship turned away, from the wreckage, slipping into the dark, leaving the galaxy to decide how it would answer the warning. The journey back to Sol was calm, too calm. The Erebus glided through the quiet darkness, her crew carrying the weight of a galaxy-wide warning they had just delivered. But Captain Zara knew better than to believe in peace. In war, silence was never safety. Silence was the moment before, the next strike. In the outer reaches of the Gorthon sector, far beyond any Council patrol routes, an ancient space station hung above a dying red star. Its hull was blackened with age, its structure patched with metals no living species remembered forging. Inside, the air was thick with shadows and the whispers of alien voices that no translation matrix could fully decode. Around a long, curved table sat beings older than the Council itself. They had been watching. One figure, its body hidden beneath a shroud of dark metal plates, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "The Threks have fallen. Humanity rises faster than we predicted." Another, its eyes like cold moons, leaned forward. "Then the plan moves sooner. If they are this dangerous now, imagine them in a century." A third voice hissed, "We will not wait for a century." In the shadows, a holographic image flickered to life. The Erebus, turning away from the ruins of the Threx fleet. "They think they have won," the shrouded figure continued. "They think the galaxy will fear them, but fear fades. We will make the galaxy hate them instead." The others murmured in agreement. Somewhere deep within the station, weapons older than most civilizations began to hum with power. Back on the Erebus, Mara was monitoring communications when she caught something strange, a faint signal hidden beneath routine council chatter. She frowned. "Captain, I'm picking up a coded burst. It's bouncing through 10 relay stations before, disappearing into deep space. It's not council encryption, and it's not Threx." Zara's attention sharpened. "Trace it." "I can't," Mara admitted. "Whoever sent it knew exactly how to hide their trail." Rourke leaned forward. "Could be just a rogue. Traitor." "No," Zara said, her voice flat. "This is someone watching us, planning." She looked out into the endless black ahead. For the first time since the battle, her thoughts were not on victory, but on the enemy she couldn't yet see. Far away in the dark station above the dying star, the shrouded figure gave the final order. "Release the hunters. Humanity's trial begins now." 3 days from Sul, the Erebus entered a quiet, unmarked system, just a shortcut through deep space. There were no planets worth naming, only a dim star and a scattering of cold asteroids. It should have been empty, but it wasn't. Mara's voice cut through the low hum of the bridge. "Captain, I'm detecting mass shadows behind the asteroid field. No energy signatures, no movement." Zara didn't take her eyes off the view screen. "They're there, waiting." Rourke adjusted the tactical display. "If they're running, silent, they'll be invisible until they fire. Whoever they are, they know how to hunt." The Erebus slowed, her engines pulsing just enough to keep her drifting forward. Every sensor sweep came back clean, but the crew's instincts screamed danger. Then it happened. Not a missile, not a laser, but a shimmer in space, like heat over desert sand. It rippled, and a black, blade-shaped ship slid out of the distortion, silent as death. It was followed by another, and another. They were nothing like Threx ships. No bright hulls, no flashing weapon ports. Just jagged, shadow-colored killers, built for one thing: assassination. The first attack was sudden. A bolt of deep red energy lanced across the void, striking the Erebus's shields. The whole ship shook. Shields holding. "But barely," Mara shouted. Zara's eyes narrowed. "They're testing us!" The Erebus spun sharply, railguns firing into the nearest hunter. But the alien ship simply twisted, its hull bending unnaturally before vanishing into another ripple of distortion. "They can phase," Rourke snapped. "We can't lock targets if they disappear at will." The next strike came from below. A hunter emerging right under the Erebus, claws of metal tearing at the lower hull. The sound of rending steel echoed through the ship. "Deck 7 breached," a voice shouted over comms. "Seal it off," Zara ordered, "and get me a firing solution." For the next 10 minutes, the Erebus danced through the asteroid field, firing blind at flickering shadows. The hunters attacked in pairs, vanishing before counterfire could hit them, but humans adapted fast. Zara knew she didn't have the luxury of matching them in stealth, so she chose something else. Mara, give me a full graviton burst on my mark. Rourke, arm the flak batteries. Flak? In space? Rourke asked. Yes, Zara said, a rare smile forming. Let's give them a storm they can't hide in. The Erebus surged upward, engines roaring, then released a blinding graviton wave that shook every rock in the asteroid field. The hunters were forced out of phase, their hulls sparking as the distortion fields collapsed. Now! Zara barked. These flak batteries erupted, flooding the space around the Erebus with thousands of hypervelocity fragments. In seconds, 2 hunters were shredded. A third tried to flee but was caught in a railgun burst that split it apart. The remaining hunters vanished into deep space. They're gone, Mara said after a long moment. No, Zara replied, watching the empty void. They'll be back. And next time, they won't underestimate us. Far across the galaxy, in the dark station above the dying star, the shrouded figure listened to the report. 3 hunters lost, a voice said. The figure didn't move. Acceptable. We've learned how they fight. The next wave will be their end. The Erebus limped into Sol space, her hull scarred from the hunter attack. Earth's orbital defense platforms hailed them with relief, but Captain Zara gave no details of what had happened. Some truths were too dangerous to speak. In open channels, the official report to the Galactic Council spoke only of rogue ships and pirate activity. But behind closed doors, the truth spread like wildfire. Humanity had been targeted by something unknown, something far deadlier than the Threx. In the months that followed, the attacks changed shape. There were no more open battles. Instead, supply convoys vanished. Outposts went silent. Patrol ships never returned. The hunters were no longer just after the Erebus. They were dismantling humanity's reach, piece by piece. But it wasn't only in space. On distant colonies, whispers began. They say the humans destroyed the Threx without warning. They say the Erebus fires on anyone who gets too close. They say Earth is building weapons that could wipe out entire planets. Zara knew these were lies, but lies were dangerous. In politics, fear could be more powerful than fleets. In the Galactic Council chamber, subtle shifts began. Trade deals with Earth were delayed. Patrol zones were reassigned. Former allies grew cold. Admiral Solari noticed it too. Over a secure channel, she warned Zara, "Someone is poisoning your name. By the time the truth reaches the Council, it may not matter. They will already see you as the enemy." On the Erebus, the crew trained harder. Mara ran constant sensor sweeps, hunting for any sign of the hunters. Rourke upgraded every weapon, system twice over. And Zara studied maps, patterns, and histories, trying to understand their enemy. The problem was, this wasn't a war fought on open battlefields. It was a war fought in shadows, with rumors, sabotage, and fear. 1. "Night cycle?" Mara called Zara to the bridge. "We found something," she said quietly. A tiny probe floated at the edge of Earth's sensor net, transmitting a tight beam signal into deep space. It bore no markings, no ID. "Hunter tech?" Rourke asked. "No," Mara said. "Older, much older." Zara stared at the probe, her mind cold and sharp. "Trace the signal." "It's going to the Gorthan sector," Mara replied. "But the destination is classified in every council database, even the locked ones." Zara's eyes narrowed. "Then we just found our next target." Far away, in the station above the dying star, the shrouded figure heard the news. "They are coming," a voice said. The figure's tone was calm. "Good. Let them. They will walk into the darkness themselves." The Erebus slipped into the Gorthon sector like a shadow in the night. No beacon, no broadcast. Just silence. Captain Zara sat in the command chair, eyes fixed on the star map. The probe's signal had led them here, a dying red star with a single object in orbit. The station. It was larger than she had imagined, a black ring of metal and spires, old as the void itself. It radiated no heat, no energy signature, yet every instinct screamed it was alive. "Mara, full scan," Zara ordered. Mara's voice was low. "Captain, it's impossible. I'm detecting power levels beyond anything we've ever seen, but it's hidden, like the station is folding it inside itself." Rourke muttered. "That's not technology. That's sorcery." Zara didn't smile. "In space, there's no such thing as sorcery, only science we don't understand yet." As they approached, the comms crackled. A voice, deep and ancient, spoke without language, yet everyone understood. "You are far from home, human. The—" Crew froze. Zara answered calmly. "And yet we found you." The voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You destroy what you fear. The Threks, the hunters. Soon the galaxy will see your true face." Zara's eyes hardened. "The galaxy will see we don't bow to those who try to break us." The station came alive. Panels of ancient armor slid open, revealing massive weapon arrays. From the black surface, ships emerged, dozens of hunter craft, larger and more advanced than the ones they'd faced before. "Multiple targets inbound," Mara shouted. Zara stood. "Rourke, all weapons hot, full power to shields. This ends here." The void lit up. Railguns spat slugs at impossible speeds. Flak cannons burst into walls of fire. The Erebus weaved through enemy fire, her engines screaming. Two hunters closed from the flank, their phasing tech making them flicker in and out of reality. But Rourke had been ready. Graviton pulses blasted them into visibility, and railgun bursts tore them apart. But for every hunter destroyed, more poured from the station. The Erebus took hit after hit, shields flaring, hull plating tearing. "Shields at 20%! Mara yelled. Zara's gaze locked on the station's core. A faint pulse, the heart of its power. "Target the core," she ordered. "But we can't," Rourke began. "Do it!" The Erebus dove under a massive spire, flying so close the hull scraped ancient metal. Enemy fire roared past. The core came into view, a swirling sphere of white-gold energy suspended in a cage of black steel. All batteries. Fire! Every weapon on the Erebus unleashed hell. Rail slugs, plasma bolts, and missiles slammed into the core. The sphere flared brighter and brighter until it was blinding. The explosion was like a silent supernova. Light swallowed everything. When it cleared, the station was gone, ripped apart into drifting debris. The surviving hunters fled into the void. The Erebus drifted in the wreckage, battered but alive. Zara sat back in her chair, exhausted. "Signal Earth. Tell them. The shadow is gone." Mara hesitated. "Is it? What if there are more of them?" Zara's voice was steady. "Then we'll find them, and we'll remind them. Humanity does not kneel." The Erebus turned toward the stars, engines burning bright against the darkness. Somewhere, in the farthest reaches of space, the war might not be over. But the galaxy now knew one thing: humanity was not prey.